All right, let's talk about dark chocolate. I love dark chocolate. It's one of my favorite things in the entire world because it's healthy, right? It's good for you. At least that's what I thought. A whole bunch of research has been coming out. Consumer Reports apparently did a whole bunch of studies on the lead and cadmium. Cadmium, was that right? Yes, the lead and cadmium contents of dark chocolate. So now I have to be afraid that the dark chocolate I love might be killing me. Tell me about this. This came from Consumer Reports. We trust them, right? They don't have a dog in this fight. There's no reason for them to care. What's going on? What did they say?
I guess I don't really know what sparked them to look at this. More of just like the inkling that there was.
I think there was a lawsuit against Trader Joe's and Hershey's.
But I didn't know if that came before or after.
So that's good. Yeah, I'm not sure about that.
Regardless, yeah. I mean, there's a heavy metals in food and supplements, food products. Like it's we know it's an issue.
Yeah.
And so for whatever reason, they ultimately looked into this to try to figure out what exactly the deal was specifically with dark chocolate. And so they ran some really interesting tests. They used like California's standards for determining like the actual cut points as far as like what's acceptable with these different metals. Now I must say there should be really no acceptable amount, especially in the blood. Like there's no amount that kind of makes sense for these sorts of things directly.
It's not something you want in any amount.
Yeah.
But they're saying there is a level at which it shouldn't theoretically affect your health. Mm-hmm. And they're looking past that point. Mm-hmm. Is that right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And so they found that lead and cadmium were the big two. So
So which brands? Was it anything in particular?
That's what kind of surprised me a little bit. I just kind of expected the smaller brands, not as mass produced, maybe using smaller town farms, those kind of things. I expected the smaller brands to perform better. And, maybe if you really microanalyze this, maybe they do, because the worst ones are, I believe, I lost it. But the worst ones, high in both lead and Lilly and cadmium. Yeah, Lilly, small company, and Trader Joe's, what we call that, a medium-sized company. Mm-hmm. So that really surprised me. If I had to guess going in what were going to be the highest, I would have guessed Hershey's and, that and maybe Ghirardelli.
Sure.
And it didn't occur that way. So that was surprising. Because even like for us as a small company, our CBD, for example, we use like an organic farm in Kentucky. We're just more likely to use a farm that's going to have less heavy metal burden than I would assume. I mean, I can't imagine the size of the cacao trees and that they have to use
that
to
Hershey
produce
has to be using.
Hershey's.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't even fathom.
Yeah.
So how that performed better is kind of mind blowing.
It is crazy, but Hershey bought Lilly in 2021. So
Wow.
So there's that part of it. So they're not as small. They're not as.
Yes, they try to retain
under the
that small
radar.
feel, but
Maybe that's part of it is that a couple of brands own most of these, and so they're really just changing the deck chairs a little bit. Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I think the other angle too, it's not exactly what we're talking about yet, but the benefits are controversial, as well as they're fueled heavily, these studies, by the chocolate industry. I mean, it's the money that these
in terms of the health
studies
benefits
that purport the benefits, they're coming from the chocolate industry.
Of
They're
course.
paid for by Hershey's, and it's just
that is shocking.
So when you look at it that way,
right?
Who wants to go in and go against chocolate, like who, in terms of dark chocolate at least, and those benefits.
Spoil sport,
Yeah.
But
of course, so there's not maybe like Harvard doing studies on this or large universities doing studies on it yet, but something like this may get that going. But it's big business doing these studies that are going to put out these benefits of dark chocolate.
I just pulled up this story here, and I'm looking at all of the brands, and it's really breaking my heart because Lilly's is one of my favorites. HU, I love their stuff, and they had so much lead, 210% of the air quotes safe amount in their typical servings. And I could really get down on some of that. A bunch of these, man.
Could you taste some of those metals? Maybe you like the taste.
I don't know. Maybe that's it. Maybe I like lead.
What do they say? The lead comes from the processing.
Okay.
Cadmium comes from the soil. So that goes back to what we were talking about, small versus big, and where that went different than we thought. But lead would occur during the processing. But still, I would still assume that the larger companies would have more of an issue with it.
Even if I don't see, I was eating it not because it would make me healthier, just as a replacement for other sweet things, because dark chocolate doesn't typically have very much sugar, and so it's a air quotes healthier option if you need a sweet fix.
Yeah. When you look at that, though, I still think if you're doing it in low amounts and you're overall a healthy person, I don't think that that it doesn't mean you shouldn't touch it.
Okay,
because
so that's
you deal with it in all foods,
right?
Especially now, if you tell me, hey, I'm eating organic food, I go to Whole Foods, I go, organic, I try those kind of things. Not that it's impossible to have some heavy metals in that,
right?
But if you are, aiming for the top of the line in the sense of lack of, pesticides and heavy metals in all the food, then maybe you look at it a little differently.
Yeah.
Because either you want to stay with that theme of your life and that's your lifestyle.
Sure.
Or, hey, I'm doing that so I can mix in a little dark chocolate. So however you want to spin that in your own mind, generally a healthy person, and unless you're eating tons of this stuff every day, you're probably going to be able to get rid of this load.
Okay. So that's the question. How much is, and I know we're speaking really on the edge here, but in terms of typical lifestyle, is there a safe amount? Can I have a little bit? Can I get away with, a couple of pieces a day? Do I need to keep it to a couple of pieces a week? What are we looking at here?
Yeah, I mean, the best advice here is just to eat a varied diet and sporadically have some dark chocolate, and try not to, whether it's dark chocolate or rice, try not to make those like 80% of your diet.
Yeah.
Those are the issues, because you're going to more likely be affected from the amounts of lead that you saw in houses in 1978 whenever it was found in the paints, or if you've worked in construction and it's just, ubiquitous in your environment. Those are the bigger problems. But your food, unless you are so consistent in eating one group of food all the time, which, ultimately comes with its own list of issues, so to say. I think that's really kind of the best advice, instead of saying, well, you're going to look at this blood level and this is what you need to watch. I mean, we could, but again, you're not going to really know which food item was causing it.
I think it's too hard to pin down. I think you just have to, at some point with a lot of these topics, there's no consensus, and there's no study I can point to tell you how much to take. And that's going to be a theme with a lot of these things. So at some point, you have to go a little theoretical and go with just the general knowledge that you have.
Yeah.
What do I feel is the right thing to do? And I think that's a good way to put it. Is a few times a week probably sounds better to me, knowing what we know, than eating a few pieces every single day. Again, there's probably numbers you could crunch, and how big are the pieces, what was the percentage. You'd have to really get into number crunching to start,
But that might be irrelevant if the salad that I'm eating is not actually organic and has been...
I'm just going to say that because it's not accounting for everything else you do.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, and speaking of salad, it's like there's tons of lead potentially in spinach. And so if all you do is eat bags and bags of spinach with dark chocolate on the side, it's like, it's just very...
You're killing me.
That's the problem. Like, you could play devil's advocate with all these different food, these food choices.
So you got to look at the benefits, and to me, the dark chocolate benefits are more controversial than the benefits of spinach.
Yeah.
Benefits of spinach are black and white
that have flavonols.
True.
It's like... The other thing that, I guess, if we kind of want to get to the nitty-gritty of it, we could say a little more confidently that less dark chocolate for kids, less dark chocolate for pregnant women, because kids are, and young children under 6 are the ones that are more likely to have issues with the actual issues that heavy metals and lead can cause.
Okay.
So
definitely.
Kids don't really like dark chocolate anyway. but I would still try and.
My daughter does. She goes after mine, and it's really annoying.
Yeah, my son, especially my older one, has a sweet tooth that goes straight after the milk chocolate.
Yeah.
Like he wants the
There you
sugar.
go.
If he knew,
Subbing the milk chocolate.
Well,
That's
and I was
the.
gonna say-
oddly, yeah. If
In
you're
this
talking,
case, subbing the milk chocolate. I mean,
So the milk chocolate isn't as much of an issue because the issue with the lead and the cadmium is in the cacao itself.
Yeah.
exactly.
And the dark chocolate has a much higher percentage of that.
Yes, that's definitely true. Now, what would be interesting is because what they're saying is the lead comes from the processing. You assume Hershey's is processing their dark chocolate the same way they're processing their milk chocolate.
Right, it's all the same
what
cacao.
So the cadmium you'd assume would go down black and white. The lead, maybe not so much. That we don't know.
Yeah.
But if you're kind of just going from A to B, it's pretty clear if they're saying the processing is causing it that the processing of the two are the same.
Okay.
It is.
So go ahead.
Yeah. The other thing too is it is it ultimately this is still probably a good thing that made it to the masses because you feel bad for these companies kind of. I mean,
Well,
they
it was
have
everybody.
they have a target on their right.
It was
There's a
all
huge
of
target
them.
on their back
Definitely.
with this stuff. But if it encourages them to change part of their manufacturing process, and then it's a net win.
Yeah.
Because then it might bleed over into the processing of spinach and the processing of rice. And
Definitely.
everybody's just kind of watching these things a little more closely because all they were doing with the beans is they were just sitting out in the sun basically to dry.
Yeah.
And maybe they weren't covered properly. And so it's just like, man, is there just like lead floating around in the air that we didn't really
Apparently.
And so it is I don't know. It's a learning experience from us who we're out very far removed from the manufacturing process of,
Right.
and processing of cacao beans. But,
Right.
So if it can force us to just look a little closely at these manufacturing processes, it's a good thing. You know?
All right.
Yeah.
So bottom line, you don't have to cut it out altogether. Just be aware of it. And the reality is lots and lots of foods probably have some levels of this in there. This one's just under the microscope at the moment. There isn't a single, there were some brands that were a little better off than others. What were we should say the best ones? Mast, Taza, the Ghirardelli. That was interesting. A couple of Ghirardellis were good. And then one of them, I guess all the Ghirardelli was doing well. Those were the better ones, safer. But bottom line was all of them had it present. It wasn't like there was any dark chocolate that didn't have lead and didn't have cadmium.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, darn it. I guess I'll try to ease off.